So on the journey, though most people know the NFL part, right? I always like to say that's the shiny penny. That's what people go right to. Um, the route there, um, being a woman in football is a lot different than the route that many guys would go. I was one of the best female players in the world for a long time. 4 Super Bowls, 2 gold medals on the first and second women's U.S. national team, and an 8-time Pro Bowler. From women's football, one of the things that you learn is what most women learn is that, it's a full-time hustle, right? Like for us in football, because it wasn't like the men's journey where there was, um, you know, a a clear path of where you could go, and certainly what you could make. We all had like 47 jobs at any time. We were the team publicist. We were the marketers. We were making our own business cards. I know I had mine that people would collect because I put a different football picture on them each year because I was a football player. And my mindset was, being a professional isn't what they pay you. It's the attitude that you take. And it was that mentality that really led me to do a lot of things and acquire a lot of skills that one wouldn't necessarily associate with, playing football traditionally or even coaching football. The main one being a master's degree in sports psychology and a PhD in psychology. One of the areas I emphasized was always kids, and kids in sports. My master's thesis was on parenting your child athlete. And one of my main projects was pitching the need for the integration between drawing and play therapy and sports psychology to be able to reach these young athletes in a way that typically they weren't being reached, right? All the research at that time in sports psychology was really a lot older. And then I had these young athletes that would be referred to me, and nobody had really devised methodology to talk to them. So I became a lot obsessed with kind of, the language in which you could speak to kids so that they would hear it and also give them a voice. So that will come back later, obviously, in what we're talking about now. But getting the master's and PhD was really a part of realizing that because there was no direct path for women in football, right? There was no woman I could look at and say, I want to be her, right? There was no woman in the NFL that I was like, I'm gonna do what she's doing one day. So my idea was, and what a lot of us do when we get creative and entrepreneurial is that I would take my experience being one of the best athletes in the world and develop an expertise through my education that together would make me a unique value proposition in the space. There really wasn't anyone else that was walking in both worlds. You would see maybe athletes that would, speak on motivation or something like that, or you would have someone in sports psychology who would speak to athletes, but not as much of the full gamut theory and practice expertise. I got into men's pro football the most painful way possible, I lovingly say, because I actually played a season with the Texas Revolution. In the process of that, it was my heart, hustle, and mentality and the relationships I developed with the players that caught the attention of our new head coach the next year, Wendell Davis, former Dallas Cowboy, who frankly told me, you're going to coach my football team. To that, I said, no, women don't coach football. And he said, not a lot of guys are going to give you this opportunity. You're taking this job. So I see a lot of guys on this call. For those of you who are on this call, I, as a woman who empowers women, am one who believes that we do it with partnership from great men, because a lot of the things that I have done, there were no women who could put me in that position because they weren't there. So that's a really important thing to me. And seeing the diversity on this call as we talk about empowering women, it's not at the expense of men, it's through great allyship and partnership. So thank you all for being here. From the Texas Revolution, which I did eventually take the job, he took it for me. I ended up going to the Arizona Cardinals to become the first female to coach in the NFL. And one of the things that stood out to Bruce Arians to make that decision was actually my PhD. He loved the fact that, you know, I could relate to players, that I did what he says, which is reading somebody's eyes and seeing what's different in one person versus another, and that how understanding those voices and being able to really communicate with each other could be a powerful asset on his staff. Beyond the NFL, I have become, as Ingrid knows, and this is how we really became friends, I had an opportunity to, you know, as I see it, be an advocate and a voice. And I think I always talk about the ripple effects, like what you did is great, but what are you going to do with what you've done? And for me, the platform that having been in the NFL afforded me is one that I don't take lightly. And I look at to see where I can use those experiences and my voice and credibility to elevate others, whether it's through motivational speaking or through kids or through women. I think that our voice is one of the most powerful things that we have, and where we put it and whom we put it with can truly change the world. And so we had an opportunity to be introduced through a mutual friend, Tina Chen, which, you know, I used to do a lot of stuff for that White House, and my joke was always, well, like how do you not like answer a call from the White House? Kind of like it's like the bat symbol, like you're gonna show up. And that was how, you know, Tina and I got to know each other through like the United States of Women, and then some of that. She introduced me to Ingrid, and Ingrid has from that time become like my sister from another mister. We love our adventures, and this was one that was, you know, I think when you're a person who has a certain mentality, especially in time of crises, I think the most powerful thing that we can do is look at what's in our control, and what can we do to move the needle. I had just moved across the country. I bought a place in LA about 2 weeks before the world shut down. I got to LA the day it shut down. And so for the first 40 days of being here, my furniture was caught in coronavirus purgatory. So picture moving across country, you have a desk, a chair, a tablet, some clothes, and a mattress on the floor. And I was hearing from so many of my friends that like their kids, you know, and because like I started Gridiron Girls, which is a program to get girls opportunities in sports, and I work with Snoop Special Stars, kids really have a place in my heart. And so I was getting all these messages from friends of mine and from fellow coaches that the kids were just really struggling. You know, you take them out of their environment and all of a sudden they're cooped up at home and they need 24/7 attention from their parents, because you guys don't have a life when they leave the house. I know this, right? So you should be able to give them the same attention 24/7 as you did 4 hours in the afternoon. And a good friend of mine, Brooke Foley, who she had a group of 10-year-old boys, her 10-year-old boys, her son being 9, Danny, was like, I don't know what to do with these kids. They're so used to hockey and this, that, and the other. They're driving all of us parents collectively crazy. And, you know, at that time, we thought it was 2 weeks, right? We thought, okay, we're going to shelter in place 2 weeks. I was saying 3 because everybody would take a little longer. And I said, well, you don't want to spend money. So just, you know, grab some painter's tape from the store with a Zoom call. I can train the kids on agility. That way you're not out any money. And I will take the kids off your hands for at least 3 hours a week. And, you know, I then became their hero because they got 3 hours a week of their life back. But, you know, at the same time, it really became clear to me that because the adults were so busy adulting, which you all have been doing, and I knew Ingrid was doing, because we might text once every like, you okay? Yeah, you okay? Okay. I'm crazy. I know I'm crazy too. Be crazy and be crazy safe, right? Like so much adulting that people tried to drag me into, and I was doing that on the mental side to help people, but it wasn't where I felt like I could really move the needle. I wasn't a frontline worker. I'm not somebody in supply chain. I'm a doctor, but I write a mean note. I don't write prescriptions. You know, none of those things lined up. But I had this picture in my head of, you know, the adults being tall and kind of looking up at these big real world problems, and the kid kind of tugging at the sleeve, like, what about me? Like, what about me? And, you know, mom's washing their hands like 87 times a day and they don't understand why. And they can't go outside and they don't understand why. And they can't hug their friends. And they don't know why. And Brooke and I were going back and forth and we're doing these workouts. And I've always had notebooks. Of anybody who knows me, Ingrid could tell you, there's usually a stack of them, of whether it was stories that I went through and kind of journaling or poetry or whatever struck the mood. And I just started doodling on like kid stuff and the things that were going on. And the first book I wrote was this one, and it was to get the little critters moving. So Critter Fitter with Busy Bee, and it's an adventure in motion. And this was the first thing that came up, right? The kids were stuck inside and they were driving their parents crazy, and Busy was out getting flowers, and she saw that all the kids looked sad and they couldn't do anything and they were stuck in their house. So Busy decided that she would take them through animal exercises. So it's an actually activity book with physical things that you can do, like you swing your stinger this way, you flap your wings, and all different critter things, right? Cute, fun, and thankfully, like, the parents actually get to cheat and move too, because they need to move too, so they can bond with their kids and get a little goofy. And that was kind of what really captured Brooke's heart. And I say that because when she read it, Brooke is a brand builder. That's what she does. She has a branding agency in Chicago called Jane Agency, and she is a multi-award winning creative director. The last thing that she needed to do in the middle of a pandemic was fall in love with some kids' books, right? And like some concepts, because really it's the last thing that we need. But she looked at what I had written and what the kids were going through, and she was like, no, this is really good. And she later told me, I'm not the person to casually run ideas by, because that's what I do all day, every day. So you should know, because I like it means it's really, really good, because I'm typically really hard to impress. And I kind of went, I'm glad you didn't tell me that beforehand, because you may have never heard any of this. And the stories might have stayed in notebooks, which I think is important for all of us as like entrepreneurs and people with ideas and passions. And this is something I'm really big on. When you have big, big dreams, make sure that the people that you tell first are ones that will be expansive with you. It doesn't mean that they will love everything that you say, right? But they're not one of those people who's like, oh, that's a terrible idea. Because as soon as you hear that, like, all that I picture is like, you know, one of my crazy notebooks would have, instead of being opened, it would have been like a seat rest, right? It doesn't exist. I'm not going to let somebody else get that close to my heart, right? And the people who do that, and I say this lovingly, because it happens all the time. And a lot of the times it's someone who's really close to us, right? And, you know, we want so badly for them to love it like we do, but that thinking is actually speaking through the scar tissue of your heart. It's not meant to be mean. It's actually just pain. It's unresolved pain. It's something in their life that they didn't get to work through, and they don't want you to be hurt like they were. So those people are okay. You love them. A lot of the times, you know, they're people who have been in your life for a long time. They're just the ones you tell about it when it's already up and moving and successful. They don't get to be your front line, your first voice. your first voice are people that will say, even if it's just something as simple as like, huh, can you tell me more about that? Right? Or what are you thinking? Or let's brainstorm, right? Somebody that will be a great ally with you, because then your idea has a chance to flourish and to become more interconnected. And that's really what happened. I simultaneously had written another story, which I did not see fitting at all with this one. And it was inspired by my Chihuahua, Tyson, who is, I'm here alone. I have my Chihuahua. That's it. So I need a hug. It's that poor dog. And the poor dog, I don't even think he likes me anymore, right? He's like, no more hugs. I'm out of here. But Chihuahua, like Tyson has these big bug eyes. And so I've always called him like my little love bug, because he really does like to cuddle. Like, I'm not gonna lie. He likes to hide under blankets and he wants to be in contact. So it was like my little love bug. And Chihuahua is hard to rhyme things with. It just is. And all my books are rhyme books because that's what my niece likes. So Chihuahua Tyson all of a sudden became this lovable ladybug who just loved to hug. And Ladybug, and it's called When a Ladybug Can't Hug. Right. And this is funny. This is the one that the adults cling to the most, because all of us would say like, I just need a hug. Like Ingrid and I were talking, we'd be like, I just can't wait till I can see you and hug you, right? Because that's a real thing, and it's a really hard thing. And we as adults, right? We as adults can intellectually understand that we're doing it for the greater good, and that we can't just run up and hug everybody, though we want to. Right. Kids don't understand that. So that's a really hard thing.
I want to make sure, because we've just got 5 minutes left.
Yep.
So I just want to make sure. I loved When a Ladybug Can't Hug, and I love the concept of like all of us wanting to get close to each other.
This is the social distancing book.
Yeah, the last one, if you could share that with us. Yep. Any final thoughts, so we can, I always like to respect people's time and make sure that we get off on time, but you are awesome and so inspiring.
Well, this one goes with this one. So that's why, so this is the setup. This is the social distancing conversation. It is very lovable. My niece, who's 6, picked up that this book goes with this book, which was the part that was really impressive to me. So if you're feeling lonely, that's that one. And this one was the hardest one to write. Oops, it's upside down. That's how hard it was. And it is Wearing a Mask Says I Love You. And this one was literally, how do we take everything that's going on right now and put it into language that is for kids? Bring them into the conversation so that they can be active participants in what we're all talking about, so that they can understand very complex topics in a very approachable way. So it really does take you through all the CDC guidelines, starting with, we have to be 6 feet apart. So you'll see Ladybug comes back. We start with Ladybug. She's in her house. She wants to get out and go, but she can't because there is an invisible enemy that hops from bug to bug very quick, and you can pass it without even feeling sick, right? So that asymptomatic transmission is really important, because kids, sick looks like something, right? Sick is how we see it depicted in cartoons. So they need to understand it's not just somebody who looks sick, right? And then, the bugs were told not to go out. The virus needed carriers to move about. So this is an important concept. You see our little angry COVID here? He doesn't have feet, okay? The virus can't just walk down the street. To move, it must be carried, right? We don't want the kids thinking that the virus can just jump in their home and that it's coming after them. They've got to know, like, it can't walk around on its own, right? And so because it doesn't have feet, it can't just walk down the street. To move, it must be carried. And we used a snail because of what? Snail mail, right? Like they all know snail mail. And our little mailman, he's going around and the COVID is mad. Pick me up. I want to be carried. I don't have feet. Pick me up. And you see the drawings are drawn this way. And I love that Brooke did it because they invite the kids into the story and the kids can actually look and see that they could draw this, right? Now, this is probably my favorite little scene. Well, there's two. So you see the COVID, they're trying to get up. My aunt or my niece, this is her favorite one to read. And she's like, the virus is sneaky and clingy. It wants to come in. It's very pesky. I want to sneak on your hands and clothes. Take me in through your mouth and nose, right? So we know how it gets in. That's why a mask is really important. You see it bounces the little COVID off, and he's scared. He doesn't have a mask. Then the next scene, this is the epic bubble battle. And this is probably the kid favorite. As you see, the COVIDs get defeated by soap, right? They're like, no, not soap. Oh my gosh, I'm melting. And then our little snail, sorry, it's reversed on the screen. Our little snail comes through squeaky clean, right? Because he washed his hands. So as a parent, as a doctor, as an educator, you can say, okay, we got to go for the bubble battle. We want to defeat it. Now change the conversation and invited them in. So the bugs are staying inside. You see everybody's kind of lonely. The spiders didn't leave their webs. The bees didn't, but the ants chose to leave their beds. And your ants become your frontline workers, okay? It was a choice. They wanted to get out and go, right? Everybody else is respecting that, but the ants, they chose to leave their beds. And the ant army is the front line of the fight. They're soldiers who do what's right. This one, the kids adore. This is Sergeant. I just want you to know he leads the ant army. This is your Dr. Ant. According to my niece, we thought it was a mechanic. No, I was corrected. It is Fixer Ant because it's like Daddy and it fixes things. And this is Chef Ant. And by the way, Dr. Ant is Mommy because Mommy is a doctor. Just saying, my sister. That's right.
Jen,
and the fireflies.
We're going to sort of start to wrap up here. So share your last favorite image and then we'll wrap up, and we're going to share a link to your books with everybody in this community. And your last image, and you've given us also just so much inspiration today on the combination of being a football player, wanting to be a football player, becoming a doctor, using that combination, working with children, building on the opportunities, building on your relationships, and now doing something so important in the time of COVID-19. And thank you for being part of our community, and share us your last fave.
So basically the book ends with
Uh-huh.
all of the bugs deciding that they're going to help the ant army and get them all masks. The masks have little hearts on them because those are the social distance hugs that Ladybug gives.
Mhm.
And Sergeant calls for everybody to basically wear a mask. It's the right thing to do. And to do it says, I love you. So the kids end with a call to action to join the ant army and put on their mask. And that for parents and educators is great because instead of saying you have to put on your mask, you're now changing what it means to wear a mask, which normally, typically in kid literature would be a villain, and you're making it a hero story. So you get to tell the kids in all of the CDC guidelines how they're being a hero and helping, to fight the invisible enemy. So you can really empower them and revisit that at any time. Instead of being punitive, you can be positive and empowering to those kids, and you're helping them understand the context for which it falls.
Thank you so much. And I know you're both, I mean, now you're part of the COVIDxNOW community, and I know you're an ambassador for the Empowering a Billion Women community and the work that that community is also doing to make sure that everybody has access to a mask. So thank you for all of your amazing work, and thank you for coming and inspiring us today. Just really appreciate your time and all of the hard work that you're doing. I see Stuart there clapping. Hattie's
Love you, Jen. Thank you.
Hey, and
we're so proud of you.
It is a team sport, right? all of the beautiful superpowers, that's where we combine. I mean, it didn't surprise me that Ingrid and I were doing parallel things, right? Like both of us. I mean, I was trying to get her to read the book, and she did, and she's like, "You have no idea what I've been doing." I was like, "I have an idea. I don't know how it fits yet, but I'm sure that it's there." But that's what great people do. And she has been she and her team, I should say, because it doesn't happen without an amazing team, has been so moved and impressed by all of you. So thank you for listening to this way that I could help all of you do the amazing work that you've been doing, because anything is only as good as like the big, amazing, awesome crew that you roll with. And I have heard rave reviews about all of you. So thank you for inviting me into your world, minds, and community.